Hey guys, my guest today, Oliver Martin Cass. We'll be talking about plane crashes and some incredible stories of survival. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, how's everyone doing? I hope you had a great weekend. Today is Monday, first day of the week. I know it's hard. Just count those days down because before you know it, it's going to be Friday again. Anyway, my name is Charlotte, and I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means should you have a paranormal problem, we can get to you. It might take us a couple days, but we definitely can get out to you. Reason being, it takes a couple days is because when people think of California, they think it's all beaches. It's kind of like Hawaii. You think of Hawaii, you think of hulas and music and beaches. A lot of people think of California that way, but we're not. We are a very, very varied state when it comes to terrain because we have beaches, we also have deserts, we have high deserts, we have a lot of farming areas, and mountains, and so it's a big state. So normally, even though I have people in those particular areas, it might take them, like I said, a couple days to get to you. But don't despair. If it comes down to trying to get you, we do have psychics and mediums on staff who can call and consult with you, if that helps. And in most cases, if there is something going on, let me boost my mana gain a little bit here, guys. If there is something going on, they can pretty much calm it down before we get out there. So that's how we do it. But we will get to you. It might take us 2 or 3 days. All right, that being said, welcome. If you're watching from Facebook today and you like what you see, please be sure to follow it if you haven't done so already. Also, while you're watching from Facebook and you like what you see, show me some love. Show me some thumbs up. Show me some hearts. Show me some smiley faces. And do comment, because what that does is it puts us up higher in the FYP, and then Facebook will distribute us out to more people. Same thing with YouTube. If you're watching from YouTube, please be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, if you like what you hear. And again, same process. Comment, happy faces, hearts, thumbs up, whatever. And it puts us up higher in the FYP with YouTube as well. All right? Just like TikTok's the same way. They all operate the same way. So the more feedback we get, the better it is for us in the end. Anyhow, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, like I said, please do. We have 681 videos sitting over there on YouTube, all of this show. And all kinds of topics. I'm a journalist, photojournalist. I hate covering just ghost stuff. I hate to say it. I enjoy the ghost stuff, but I like to change it up, right? Because that's the reporter in me. So if you go over there and check us out, you'll see that there's all kinds of varying topics. The other thing I did was when I used to go in there to look for like guests that had been on before, and when you open the initial page on YouTube, it's like you get hit with all 600 videos. It's just crazy. You're looking through trying to pick and choose what you want. So it gives me migraines. It probably gives you migraines. So what I did was I'm almost done categorizing these things. And so now you can go in by folder and topic. Like if you're into alien abductions and things like that, there's a folder for that. If you're into like news stuff, kind of like newsy stories like we're doing today, there's a folder for that. If you're into Nancy Matz on Fridays, there's a folder for that. So I'm putting everything under categories. And there are about 15 categories right now sitting over there. It's going to take me a while to get get it all categorized, but we'll do it. Okay. So that being said, if you're watching again, from YouTube and Facebook and all that, show me some love, give me some thumbs up. We're also broadcasting on Twitter and then TikTok. All right, so you can find us under California Haunts on Facebook, California Haunts Radio on Facebook, California Haunts on Twitter, Cal Haunts on Twitch, California Haunts on TikTok, and you can also find us on Instagram under Ghosty Gal, and that's all lowercase. Okay, that's it. That was announcements. That being said, my guest today, Oliver Martin Cass, is an author, and he's got some unique stories to tell about survival. I've heard stories like this too. People falling out of airplanes with no parachute, and somehow they manage to survive. Well, he's written a book about 10 of these kind of survival stories. So we're going to get to know him and talk about some of these stories. Okay? So without further ado, let me bring him in. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. It's a frosty morning here in New Zealand. I wish I could be there in California. I don't mind if it's a high desert at the moment, but below 10 degrees. I think we're probably in the single digits at the moment, but it's 6 a.m. here. So good morning to everyone there, or to good evening, good afternoon to wherever else you're listening from.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's right. You guys are in winter right now, huh?
Yes, absolutely. So winter, Christmas in July, as they say, or
Yeah.
August now. So it's yeah, way below the southern hemisphere. So yep, when they say it in the song, sometimes it's not, sometimes it snows down in June. It's very true here.
And you've got similar terrain as we do because you've got your beaches and you've got your mountains and you've got your desert areas.
Yes, that's absolutely true. So, not much of the desert areas though, but we do have terrains that resemble deserts, mountains a few hours away, beaches just a few minutes away as well.
Hmm.
So it's seems like we're all around. So it's a good place to be.
Absolutely. And I have to admit, I'm on my fifth Australian Kelpie.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
good.
I love the dog breed, and this is just want to add that in. I mean, I've had Australian Kelpies for years, and wouldn't want it any other way. I love it. I know they're not
Yep.
from New Zealand, but I'm just saying you guys, it goes back and forth. Tell me
Mhm.
about you, sir.
Full disclosure, Oliver Martin Cass is my pen name. So my real name is Chris, and
Okay.
I am a registered nurse here in New Zealand. I do write books. I've published two books now. I have a third one on the way, and I do write about uh, survivors of disasters. It stemmed from my own experience when I was a child. My dad, who I wrote about my second book, who is a mariner, and he had his own close encounter of over the sinking ship. So his the cargo ship. He was a captain of that ship at the time, as a fresh captain, and he um, it was a very old ship as well. There was leaks, and so that leaks became really really bad. And long story short, he the ship sank. It was, it was his very first uh, um, uh, encounter as a he was just a fresh captain at the time, was
Mhm.
responsible for his entire crew. Luckily he got rescued and survived, but spent hours and hours and hours in the water. They almost didn't make it because he had there were only two lifeboats in the ship. One that they tried to use got damaged during the when they were trying to lower it down.
Mhm.
Then they used the second one. Spent hours with 8 meter waves during that time, and uh, yeah, luckily he was rescued, and that's just stayed with me for many 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 years now. And the writing part actually came about just very recently when I was exposed to some coaching groups about self-publishing. I said, "Oh, I could probably do this, as a side hustle as well." So I enrolled in Amazon's KDP, and through the coaching group, I was able to find this niche, this survival niche. And
Mhm.
I thought I wouldn't start with a story about my dad first, but I do want to find out. Initially, I wanted to do one story of plane crash survivors, because that's
Mhm.
always very interesting. I've always been interested about um, 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 planes and aircraft. I'm not an aeronautic expert. I
Mhm.
do like planes in general. I do play flight simulators and all that. So and I do watch air crash investigations, or Mayday, that series. So I'm very interested with how planes um, um, perform during crashes. Why do they crash? what happens during, if there were people that survive, what happened to them in their lives as well. So yeah, that's what got me started. And I thought initially of just doing one story, but I said there's just too many, there's just too many really wonderful stories. And yeah, that's why my first book came out, The Day They Fell from the Sky. So yeah, a collection of really, really wonderful um, stories of soul survivors. So it's very interesting, this book, because it's I mean, there are statistically very few that survive plane crashes,
Mm-hmm.
very few that survive it on their own, on that plane. So like all of these 10 stories, they're lone survivors, so they just survive
Mm-hmm.
just by themselves. So yeah, so that's what we're talking about today.
Was it difficult to research all that?
It was. I did have a ghostwriter that I had help me with it as well. Just because I'm a very newbie writer. I do like researching, and I really loved to delve deep into those stories. It's just molding all them together.
Mm-hmm.
So during the creative process, I was really I wanted this to be told that way as accurately as possible, because I didn't have a chance to interview these survivors, unfortunately. But looking into these stories, I do want to showcase the sort of what their lives were before, especially during that crash as well. What were the causes? What were the possible reasons why they survived? Why them? What set them apart from the others that
Right.
given that survival ability?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, were you able to contact? Well, obviously you were able to contact these people. How receptive were they to you writing a book about it?
No, actually, to be honest, I haven't been able to contact them.
Okay.
What I did was just I gathered the stories that I did like online. So
Mm-hmm.
most of them were from news articles, documentary video. So basically, there was actually a documentary, Soul Survivor, that features all of the, well, most of them actually together. Majority of the stories that were the individuals that were in my book were in that one whole sort of story. And yeah, through online research, um, um, and back and forth with my ghostwriter. So I did compile them all in one as well, and that's what I've been doing for majority of my other books. For my future books, and I've been trying to finding out ways and how to actually talk to survivors. So we've had I'm working on a future project when I'm gonna try and see if I can get stories of survival from others that were in a volcanic eruption.
Mm-hmm.
New Zealand's a very volcanically active country, and we've had the White Island eruption just a few years ago, and there were quite many survivors during that time. So that will be probably my first time to actually get their stories and get their perspectives on it.
Interesting. So, is there a particular story that sticks out in your mind?
Yes, actually, the first one that I actually wanted to write as a as a biography type is Vesna Vilovich. So she was the Serbian air air crew flight stewardess that survived. Having been so she was dubbed the Guinness World Record holder for the only person to have survived falling from 10,000 meters, or
Wow.
33 feet. So she was the first one that I have encountered with. I read her story online and gathered some of her interviews and all that. It's very, very interesting. So how she managed to survive that, the conspiracy theories behind it. So yeah, she really got stuck with my overall theme of the book. So I discussed about survivor's guilt in that book as well, and
Mm-hmm.
many of these survivors suffered survivor's guilt, and she was one of them who actually who suffered around that throughout her life, actually.
Hmm. So how does one fall out of an airplane at 30,000 feet?
So it was said that there was a bomb that exploded, and it wasn't exactly known as to who um, 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 had put it there. Um,
Hmm.
Still, the investigation didn't really conclusively say who it was. It was during that time that there was still some tensions. So the plane flew over Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia at that time, um, now Czech Republic. There was conspiracy theories that it was shot down
Right.
by military anti-aircraft artillery,
Hmm.
but it was actually proven otherwise, and they said that all the evidence points out that it fell from cruising altitude, which is 33,000 feet, and that's higher than the peak of Mount Everest, because Mount
Wow.
Everest is 29,000 feet. So cruising altitude for that plane was 33,000, and all of a sudden Vesna was just doing her own thing. I mean, she wasn't strapped to her seat or anything like
Right.
that. Bomb exploded the cargo hold, and that sent the plane plummeting from the sky. She was trapped at the back of the plane, pinned down on a food cart or like a food
Hmm.
trolley, sort of a food storage facility, and that they said could have contributed to her surviving. Just sort
Hmm.
of like you're falling from the sky, you're riding debris, and you're not sort of you're probably she was like I'm like with this with factors that affected these survivors.
Hmm.
Sometimes we don't know if it's luck, if it's just being in the right place at the right time, and she was probably in the right place at the right time. So she surfed sort of whilst falling down the air, and that being trapped in that debris, and she fell into some thick snow as well. So
Wow.
it was said that probably she also survived because of the impact on on the snow,
Hmm.
basically. And another thing as well, I'm probably in a very I don't know uh, if it's down to luck as well. She had low blood pressure. She was found to have low blood pressure, and she actually shouldn't have been allowed to work with with medical issues like that.
Hmm.
But apparently she managed to by drinking she during the test it was found out that she drank coffee, she ate and that elevated her blood pressure. She thinks she
Hmm.
did just to elevate her blood pressure, and then but that I mean that she didn't sustain that lifestyle. Her blood pressure remained low, and they said that when you uh, suffer an impact from accidents, car accidents or plane accidents or things like that. What happened to Vesna was her heart didn't explode on impact, because if you had normal blood pressure,
Right.
for sure, pretty sure your heart would have been such tremendous trauma. Your blood vessels constrict and everything, and then it's just gonna burst. But
Right.
with her low blood pressure, it contributed that it didn't cause too much pressure in her heart, her impact injuries and all that, and that may have contributed to her survival too. So she was very very lucky. We don't know if it's divine providence, whatever you call it. So
Right. Right. Right.
yeah, so that was a very interesting story, and you guys should check it out as well if you read my book.
I can't imagine, being on a plane like that, and then something like that happens. I can't,
Absolutely.
because I try, like as you're talking, I'm trying to get a picture of this in my head, and it's beyond my comprehension to think that somebody could survive a fall like that. When I was a newspaper reporter out in Woodland, California, they had a couple airfields like midway through the county, and you'd hear these stories of these jumpers that had where their parachute didn't open.
Yes, that's
During
right, and that's very very scary. You would imagine what would happen to those jumpers, and your parachute just malfunctions
Mhm.
and falling through the sky like that. It's just unimaginable. But doesn't deter many people like me to travel, I suppose.
My thing is cruise ships. I do not like deep water, and it bugs me. And so I will not go on a cruise ship. Just like Hawaii, I went diving with the sharks in the shark cage. And all I could
Yes,
think about when I looked down, and I thought, you know what? There's nothing below me. If this thing falls, I'm doomed. It's over.
that's right. That's
You
right.
know. So
You're in the mercy of the open sea.
it was fun, but on the other hand, you're sitting there thinking about that stuff. What if?
Yes,
What if?
that's
What
true.
if? Um, your book is really interesting. I've read parts of it. It's a fascinating book. I love stuff like this. Like I said, I used to be a crime court reporter anyway, back in the old days. So this kind
Wow.
of stuff really gets my attention. Um, when you talk about these survival tales, do the people? I know you're finding this information online, but like, like, have any of these people really sat down to say, "Hey, I think I survived because of this," or do they just think it's plain luck? What do you think?
Some of them do, but some of them are probably didn't know that it happened to them as well. There are some of the stories there that they just slept through it. Like one of the journalists, his name was Nestor Mata,
Mm-hmm.
and he slept through the whole thing, and that they say was also a contributor to his survival. He just
Mm-hmm.
didn't. His body wasn't tense. He didn't panic, or there was just he didn't even have his seatbelt on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting
Oh,
because
jeez.
yeah, they just wake up they just wake up and uh didn't know what happened to them. Some of them forget them as well. So yeah, so majority of them don't know. There was one survivor who was the co-pilot of that plane.
Mm-hmm.
Knew well, apparently according to reports, he suffered some memory loss. So he was probably the one who's most alert to what was happening, and could have said what was the cause of it.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like Vesna as well did recall that she heard a bomb explode. That was been very harrowing for her as well. Um, there was another one, the 17-year-old boy. He was chapter 10. His name was George Lamson Jr. And he still recalled in his interviews how the plane had veered off. It was taking off from the Reno airport and in Nevada, and he remembered how it was unstable. The takeoff was very unstable, and they just the plane got lost control, and yeah, he remembered being sucked out of the plane really, and still in his seat, and landed on a highway just nearby. So yeah,
Wow.
that was only one of the few ones that had
Hmm.
had some awareness of what was happening to them, and imagined. I mean, he did suffer some survival skill as well. Why him? Why only him? His dad was
Right.
with him. He didn't survive it. So yeah,
Well, you hear about these stories too,
oh
like
yeah,
you were
sorry.
saying about how relaxed these people are. You hear stories about somebody that knows something's going to happen, or maybe they've been drinking or whatever, and especially these people, like I said, that have been drinking. And I think that alcohol. I'm not endorsing alcohol, guys. I'm not
No,
endorsing this, but you hear a lot of stories about people that are sloshed, and survive stuff because, like you
that
said, the body is relaxed.
yes, yep, and that really creates that sort of element of being lucky to survive as well. Is that how your body had reacted to the impact? Because most of us we're seconds from impact really is we're aware, and our natural tendency is just to tense up, and to brace up or whatever. That causes a lot of injuries. That causes a lot of um 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 different sort of um uh reactions to our body. And for some of these people, like like the children,
Hmm.
they were quite small. They were probably susceptible to more to survival because of their size. um um then again, it's really, really hard to determine. Oh, this is the proper way to survive next time, or
Right.
it's quite hard because it comes down to it does come down to statistical fortune and luck,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, being the right place at the right time, um, possibly the factors that you're relaxed. Some of them, interestingly, were out. Like I've said, like were didn't wear seat belts, and a lot of the passengers that don't survive suffer from seatbelt injuries as well, and crushing injuries from wearing their seatbelts. And the others were either when during the fall of the impact, they were
Mm-hmm.
uh, tossed around the cabin. Some were pinned down seats, and those seats were acted as cushion. I know they were, all of them actually suffered tremendous amounts of injury. But some of them were, with some stroke of luck, how the reason that they survived, because they were just flung into a situation that, or a position that help cushion that fall.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then I'm not endorsing also not wearing your seatbelts. Absolutely wear your seatbelts, because statistically seatbelts save lives. But with these rare circumstances, you'd be forced to think that, wow, how could that have been lucky? Maybe,
Right.
yeah, someone must
Right.
be out there looking after them.
Well, my question for you is, because you mentioned earlier in the interview that you were looking these things up, while you were getting some information from the World Wide Web and all this. How many stories do you think are out there? I mean, are there a ton of stories like this out there, or like a handful, or how's that work?
Not many, not many. So out of this 10, so we could probably count that there was only 14 people that had survived their plane crashes by then. So we're talking about sole survivors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, there's not many, a handful of other people who have survived plane crashes. It is said statistically that plane crash doesn't happen. That's why you're even safer on a plane than you are on your car, because
Mm-hmm.
road accidents, car accidents happen all the time. Plane crashes don't. Aviation industry is safer. Now it was than a decade ago or two
Mm-hmm.
decades ago as well. So, um, and if you do, if people become involved with an airline disaster, there are a lot of other people that survive. There's people that there's this Ethiopian Airlines that crashed. I think in the 2000s, they ditched at sea. Out of the 175, like 50, I think, survived because of the circumstances that they have. So you don't really hear some of these stories that have, there was a plane that had a near fatal accident, but they all survived. Um, the most famous one, I suppose, was the Hudson River incident in New York,
Mm-hmm.
um, when the pilot had been forced to do a water landing, and he became a hero, and a lot of most of all of us passengers survived without injuries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting as well. So yeah, not many stories out there as well. That's why when you survive a catastrophic event, or even just any event,
Mm-hmm.
it's very special, and um, it does impact on their lives as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the negative aspect of it is the guilt part. Almost all of the stories here today are on the book is have some survivor's guilt, because why them? Who chose them? Why? What's so special about them? And they should have died. And many of them said that she should have
Okay.
died as well. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Um, when you talk about the guilt phase, uh, were you able to read into this? I mean, I can see feeling guilty. I mean, you survive as opposed to, say, the guy sitting in the seat next to you doesn't survive.
Yes, and
So
that's what
tell me a little bit more about that guilt phase that people go through.
So it does happen for these survivors. Sometimes it's throughout their lives. You imagine yourself being the only one who survived. Some
Mhm.
of them as well had more intense survival skills because it could have been their fault as well. They think that it was their fault, especially the co-pilot. Jim Polyhinky. So he
Mhm.
thought that he was quite depressed after all of that incident because it was also found out that his flight. So basically, what happened with his flight was they thought that they were in the right runway, but with situational awareness and everything that's been going through, it was early morning. There was only one person working in the under control tower,
Mhm.
directing them to the right runway and everything. So they thought they were in the right runway, but they were in a relatively very short runway. And they tried to take off in a short runway, and they thought, oh, there's no lights. What's going on? It's yeah. So they just but still pushed through, and eventually they they were still they hit at the end of the runway. They hit their plane and they crashed. Really right afterwards, he was the only one rescued by the rescue team. Out of all the passengers, the captain didn't make it. The other
Huh.
crew passengers didn't make it as well. And imagine yourself being the only ones to do that, and plus you thought that you were probably the one of the causes, I suppose. So
Mhm.
he was very depressed after that, and suffered from survivor's guilt. Um, the Vesna, the flight stewardess, was also suffered with that as well because she gained some fame in her native country, Yugoslavia, Serbia at that time, and she was always interviewed, and she was always, oh, how did you survive? And you thought some of them really don't want to be in that limelight as well.
Right.
They
Right.
didn't want to
Right.
speak up. So you sort of you just flung into this situation, didn't ask for it.
Mhm.
Some would probably say to you, oh, it's a blessing that you survive, but for them it's a curse that you
Huh.
have to live throughout your life.
I can understand
I
that.
didn't choose to be. I would have rather died with the others as well, and that would have kept my mind and my soul in peace.
Mhm.
Some of them, like the toddler, who was also very interesting. Her name was Cecilia. She gave her very first interview when she was already in her 20s. She was married, and
Mhm.
she opened up to that documentary, Full Survivor, and she basically related her story and how she was she was found among the debris, um, of it was in a the plane crashed, and there was debris in the highway, um, um, and she was only found when she was moaning and crying. Because of her injury, she wasn't initially identified first, but because of her purple nail polish, her relative was sort of, oh, that's her, that's Cecilia. And Cecilia came with her brother and her parents at the time, who all didn't survive as well. So imagine yourself a toddler growing up like that. So that's yeah. Sometimes you'd rather wish you've been in there. Obviously, I can't speak on the survivors, but obviously that's what
Right.
they said, and obviously felt as well. So yeah.
Man, my allergies are so bad. I can hardly keep my eyes open. They're burning so bad. Um.
That's if I my allergies are coming up to the cold. It's very
Yeah.
frosty when I've just turned on the heater. I might sneeze anytime too, so don't worry.
I'm fascinated by by these books that you write because I mean, there's always some kind of survivor story out there. Do you think that? I don't want to get too mystical on you or anything like that, but like you talked about earlier, do you think that certain people survive because there's a bigger picture plan for them, or is it just blind luck?
That's an interesting question. Nobody really knows, but uh, like I've said, statistically, it's already rare to survive a catastrophic disaster. Much more that you're the only one to survive in that. and that's why some of them are dubbed miracle survivors. Like the first person in
Mhm.
that book, her name was Bahia Bakari, so she was dubbed the miracle girl from the French girl.
Mhm.
So yeah, amongst all the survivors on her plane crash who had crashed at sea, she was the one who probably had the consciousness to be able to swim towards plane debris, and she floated with the debris of that plane floating in the ocean, and that's why she was found alive, basically. So um, there must be something planned for them. You could say so. Because yeah, why would there and the fact that many of them suffered catastrophic injuries to their bodies as well.
Mhm.
None of them escaped unscathed. Many of them had some form of injury, and somehow they made through it. uh, uh, Especially even days in the jungle. Like one of the survivors there as well, too. So there's Annette Herfkins, and there was one. Uh, uh, Her name is now. I actually forgot about her now. Uh, yeah. So basically, they survived the jungle. Some of them actually days and days and spent in the jungle. Some of them had no survival skills. Oh, yeah, her name was Julianne Kwepke, the 17-year-old teenager who had survived in the jungle.
Huh.
Um, and her story was interesting because she had survival skills. Her parents were I think one was a botanist or something like that, and
Mhm.
she had some familiar skills with forests and jungles and all that, so that contributed to her survival as well. So there's really no way to see it. Many of them did believe that there was a higher divine providence, or a higher being that had or God had helped them through it. And I suppose some of them clung to the to their fates as
Mhm.
well, that could keep you going for a number of days, trying to survive, trying to because you know that you're gonna be able to make it. But yeah, luck, being right, being at the right place at the right time, that also plays into the factor there as well.
Well, there's countless stories too about people that are signed up to go on a flight or signed up to go on a boat or anything like that, and suddenly they get such a foreboding that they cancel. They don't want to go because they think something's going to happen, and in a lot of those cases, something does happen.
Yep, yep. So there's that intuition, isn't it? They kind of like the like a Final Destination sort of situation.
Final
Although that
Destination.
doesn't
Yeah,
happen all the
I
time, but
wasn't
they
going to
are.
mention that today. I was being nice, but yeah, I love those.
I know, I've been quite familiar with that as well. But no, there are definitely stories out there of people that had not been able to because of some feelings. There was one in the story as well, with Julianne Kwepke, the 17-year-old. There was supposed to be a famous, like a filmmaker who was supposed to make it on that flight, but canceled at the last minute. He couldn't make it. So years down the track, he was very moved about how he was so close to being able to make it in that flight and didn't survive. And then
Mhm.
so he made a documentary with Julianne years later, and she was the center of that documentary, the girl who fell from the sky.
Mhm.
So yeah, so basically, she made her own book too. So that sort of the coincidences that happen. Even Vesna as well, like the interesting flight stewardess. There was another Vesna that was supposed to come in into that flight, but somehow with a miscommunication, so she was the one that was rostered maybe on that flight, and then she was the Vesna that came into that flight as well. So
Funny.
lucky for the other Vesna, But
Yeah.
but she. So yeah, so we don't know. That's really really interesting. Um, um, and many of like for me, like I'm a religious guy. I do come from a religious family and
Mhm.
upbringing. I do see that there's an element of it can't be just coincidence.
No.
This has to be some higher forces working um, um, during all of these stories, and
Mhm.
many of these individuals went up to to promote causes of that they believe as well. So along with survival's guilt, they also became they made something out of themselves. So it's very interesting. They share these survival stories to inspire others as well. So that could be their bigger plan. Having
Absolutely.
that, yeah,
We were probably at Final Destination. That it's not a funny movie. I don't want to laugh
no,
about it, but
no,
the coolest thing about Final Destination, guys, and if anybody's that's into horror movies, the creative ways they kill people
that's right,
afterwards.
that's right.
It's a
And it's very yeah. Some of these Hollywood movies do tend to dramatize the events.
mhm.
I mean, they do resemble closely what those people encounter as
Right.
well, I suppose. But yeah, it's it's interesting, but also very somber.
Mhm, mhm.
So I had to also be quite bit neutral. I do try to portray the stories in my book, and how they actually saw it, and how you know they might have experienced it. But
Mhm.
obviously, I couldn't put it in a way that I was assuming what they were thinking. So I just had to do it with the news and the interviews basically. So and many it's just harrowing. It's just scary and also very inspiring as well at the same time.
Mhm, mhm. When you look at these airline crashes, do you see as far as the survivors, as far as the crashes, do you see a pattern with any of this at all?
Yes, I do. On many of these plane crashes, they do happen either at takeoff or
Mhm,
at landing. It was
mhm,
probably only Vesna who had have been at cruising altitude when that happened. That's why she holds the Guinness World Record, because it happened at the middle of the flight when the plane was high
mhm.
up in the sky. A lot of the aircraft, statistically, and this is with statistics, a lot of the aircraft
Right.
accidents happen during takeoff and landing, and that's the most critical aspect. That's why you always have your seatbelts on um, when you're a certain distance when taking off, and seatbelts on again when descending and landing. It's because that a lot of the things happen there, a lot of the changes with altitude, so they adjust things with the plane, with the flight path, with everything happens mostly during that time, and the critical thinking of the pilots. They're very relaxed at cruising altitude. They put it on the planes on autopilot if the plane has autopilot. Now many of the commercial aircraft have autopilot, but
Mhm.
in the beginning, especially where you're still on the ground and you're trying to get up, there's a lot of technical things to do during those things to make it, you have to just keep the plane off the ground,
Right.
and even minutes after that you have to be at the right place, you have to right coordinates, you're making sure that you're not bumping into other air traffic. So all of those things, you have to make sure that your plane is having that enough lift to come up, and then
Mm.
when it's right, then you adjust it again. So yeah, so it's all during those times. So probably the lesson is listen to the pilot briefings, listen to
Mhm.
when you're putting the seatbelt signs on, put it on. It's just that's just how aviation is today. It's just for safety. Everything's about safety. and and
Absolutely.
i and I did mention it in the book. You always, even if it's your first time or your 300th time listening into the safety briefings, you'll never know if that's the flight that you're going to have some that will make a difference of you listening, because you'll know where these exits are as well. That contributes to the increased survivalness, your survivability. Is where you know where the exits are. If you're near the exit, if you have
Right.
access to immediate exit, and yeah, and always make sure that you're it's just a real good tip. Always make sure that you're out of a plane when you're inflating your inflatable life jackets,
Sure.
because you don't want to do that while you're in the inside of the plane. So that sort of thing.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Um, when you look at the research that you've done, and how long did it take you to write the book or put the book together?
Ah, uh, probably from conception to publishing, probably about 3 months. And it would have taken longer if I didn't have my ghostwriter with me. I have some editors in place as well, so we made some back and forth. It's collation of information online, so it's you wouldn't say it's very easy, but it's relatively easier when if I would have probably interviewed these individuals one by one and did all the writing by myself.
Hmm.
But it did put a lot into effort of making sure that the information is very accurate, especially me being a newbie author, and just dabbling myself with creative writing and well, in some sort of ways, it's a bit of like journalism, because I do put down the facts. I don't put
Hmm.
spin into the stories or anything like that. But yeah, took me a while. Took me to to how to publish the book as well, and how to do it, how book promotion and everything like that. So yeah, about 3 months. The second book was relatively shorter, I suppose, because of my experience. Second month, but for the third book, I want to improve on how, because I'm obviously we're not going to be happy with our first book.
Right. Right. Right.
So I wasn't certain. I would have, knowing what I know now, I would have probably done something differently. So I did take some time to sort of, okay, yeah, because I did publish the book last year.
Hmm.
I'm the second, and the second book as well. Shortly after that, the third book is just coming out next month in September. So and shameless plug here. It's the name is The Day They Strayed into the Sands. So that's again survivors of people that were lost in the desert. And my
Ooh,
second book
that's
is The Day They Swept Away, and that's survivors of sea disasters. People
yes.
were shipwrecked and lost at sea. So yeah,
A lot of stories there too.
a
It's
lot of stories
incredible.
there.
I love this. I love your topics. I can say that. I really love your topics. It's just fascinating to me. But I agree with you though. After reading through all that stuff, I don't think I'd be willing to fly that much.
Don't be deterred though, because like I said, it's you'd be much more safer in a plane than in your car, statistically. And there's lots of millions of flights every year, and they are all relatively safe. And there's just that one that will probably have some engine failure and all that. And oh, it turns out that they also survived. So it's you just don't know if you're gonna be in that situation. And all you need to do is just increase your awareness, and increase your, and that's also what I promote on my books is how do you survive, increase your probability to survive in similar circumstances.
Hmm.
So yeah, just be making sure to be aware of all those, the flight briefings. When they say to you the brace position, that's actually quite true. So the brace position in the plane does protect you overall, because you're protecting your basically, when you're in brace position, you're protecting your organs in your head. And you can lose a limb, like some of the survivors in the story actually lost some of their limbs, and but they survived that accident. So yeah, so that's really important.
Hmm. Um, I was just thinking. Well, uh, you got my mind going like this, thinking about all these things. Um, I remember reading the book, "The Ghost of Fly 401," when that
Mm,
L-1011 went down the Everglades. and how the people survived that. Because there was one particular stewardess in there who, in the book itself, who had a premonition about being in the dark somewhere, and
Wow.
wet, and
Wow.
she decided not to take the flight, and then her friend ended up on that flight, and then after the accident happened, or something happened like that, where the friend survived and then called her and said, "You're not going to believe this, but this just happened." Blah 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 blah. So I think it happens more often than not with this stuff. But like you
Yeah.
say, airline travel's safe. It is safe. I've been to Europe a couple of times. It is safe, but it does make you think. Because my dad was always adamant about, okay, if we're going to sit somewhere, let's sit near the tail, because the tail tends to survive the impact more. Watch where your exits are and all this. And I remember flying back east a few years back, and we happened to go in like March or April with the snowstorms. And as we came down on the runway, they told us to assume the position. And I happened to
Wow.
look out the window, and you could actually see the reflection. It was so icy
Oh,
on the
wow.
runway. You could actually see the reflection of the plane as it came down under the runway.
Wow.
And I looked at my friend and went, "Well, if something's going to happen. It's going to happen now." As it was when the plane touched down, we slid about 30 feet sideways.
Oh,
Not good. But
that's
I mean, and right after
that's
we landed,
scary.
they closed the airport. We were the last flight in. It
Wow.
was so bad.
Wow.
That was Chicago.
That's
And
very scary.
yeah, and so it's scary. So this stuff does happen. It does happen out there more often than not. My dad used to tell me stories because he traveled a lot with his job, about turbulence and
Mm,
like we get on planes, we hit some turbulence, and we think, ew, what's that? My dad says you don't know what real turbulence is until it really really hits. And I
that's
can
right.
see he's been on a few flights like that. So I think survival is interesting. I find the whole thing interesting, and whether it's like a giant, roulette wheel up there, or whatever that turns when it's your turn to have to survive something. But I can understand it. I can understand the guilt that goes with it too. Why me and not her? Blah blah blah. And how that works.
Mm, mm. And that's right. Like I said, the reality is that many of them actually they don't want to survive. The guilt is there,
Hmm
no
hmm
matter what. And we don't know. There's probably another hundreds of stories of survivors' guilt out there,
hmm
and that's also the interesting with the books and the stories that I have is that they live with this guilt throughout the years,
hmm
and uh, it's a reminder for them that because sometimes they live with the guilt, but sometimes those guilt actually transforms into something better. So they get reminded of the the blessings that they had, and it's just the support that their families have been giving them as well. And it's very interesting, like you said, about those that people have probably like premonitions going before, and yeah,
hmm
there have been around that. There has been stories around how they've survived that, because they had this gut feeling. And frankly, if you do have that gut feeling inside of you, it's eating you up, and sort of I shouldn't be on this plane. Probably follow it.
Absolutely.
There's nothing that will you lose nothing by following it. Probably a few
Absolutely.
$100s of your flight, but it's the you have that intuition. People have intuition, gut feelings, and more often than not, they're correct.
Right.
So
Right.
whatever for whatever reason that is, probably follow it.
Mm, absolutely.
Women are very much more uh, you know accurate with their intuitions more than men, I suppose.
Right. 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 So what's next for you? You have the new books coming out. So what's the future look like?
So the next book, the Day They Straight into the Sands, is coming out in September, in Kindle and in paperback. So I do plan to publish more
Mhm,
survival stories this time. So I'm going to I don't have a set sort of dates as to when the other books might be, but I do want to collect stories about animal attacks, some like I've said, some like fire or volcanic survivors.
mhm,
There's very interesting stories around there as well. I could probably make a book around just those individuals.
mhm,
I could also make a book with regards to collections as well, because so far these books are quite successful in Kindle, and a lot of people are reading through to it as well. And
Mhm.
ultimately, just better, just getting better with my craft of writing and storytelling, basically, without putting too much, you know, uh, it's creative nonfiction, so I do make sure that the storytelling is really good, and I am practicing my craft around that as well. Um, so probably another book at the end of the year, a fourth
Mhm.
book. But uh, I'll I'll put it out there to my audience, I suppose, and yeah, and probably publish more and more, because there's lots and lots of survivor stories. I just, when I
Mhm.
dabble more into this, there's hundreds, really, that are worthy of their own, uh, creative piece, and
Right.
it's giving justice to those survivors as well, and making their story known, um, and putting it in an inspiring way that
Mhm.
the others can, if they survive, um, you can survive too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How can people find you?
I'm on Facebook. My social account is Ollie M Cass, or you can just
Mhm.
type in the Facebook Oliver Martin Cass. That's just my main platform at the moment.
Sure.
And I just post now and then. And you can receive updates from me as well. I do have, if you purchase my book, I do have a QR code, so that you can access some free material as well and join in on my mailing list. And I do put out freebies as well. So if you join in my mailing list, you will most likely have free access to my future books and my current books. So yeah, I'll be interested to have you on my fan base.
Fantastic. All right, sir. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, and
Thank you.
I'd love to have you on later on when the other book comes out. It'd be great.
Absolutely, Charlotte. Thank you
Okay.
so much, and thank you for letting me be on your show, California Haunts.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you, sir. You have a great rest of your day.
You too, Charlotte. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye. Man, my allergies are hell. I'll tell you. My eyes are burning like crazy. Anyway, that was a great interview. I'm fascinated by stories of survival like that. Absolutely fascinated. All right, tomorrow our old friend Lyle Blackburn is back with us at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. He's going to be talking about what else? Monsters. Okay, especially one in particular. I'm not going to give it away, but he'll be with us to talk tomorrow. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I really appreciate it. And if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. We are equal opportunity here. We're just trying to spread the word about our show. So the more you get that word out, the more we get seen. All right. Anyway, I want to thank you all. And again, I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And have a great rest of your evening. Bye.